Welcome to Martini Time. I'll get my hair a little bit. Let's see what the frog brings up this evening. It's been a beautiful day here in Blackstone, the center of the world, but then you too are the center of the world. And I'll keep saying that until you get it. So, I just typed in the title to this talk, and it's called Buddha Was or Is an Alchemist. Now, alchemy was the science of the Middle Ages. And we're kind of like it, we look at it kind of like it's kind of funny. I mean, it's if you Google up Google Images alchemy, you'll see these. They're always sitting around in some Middle Age, some old castle or something. They got these chemical bottles and they're pouring everything, and they're trying to come up with the philosopher's stone. This magical, this idea, and there's much more to alchemy than that. I'm just creating up a little bit of a background to it. But there was a belief that you could discover this philosopher's stone that would transmute base metal into gold. And this is metaphorical stuff. This is legend. This is metaphor. It basically, because we're all alchemists, science is an alchemist in that sense. You're trying to turn base metal. Now, base metal is a metaphor for something that you got a lot of, and you don't know what to do with it. It's no good. How do you turn base metal into gold, something valuable? So that's basically what it's about, metaphorically, and we're all doing that. I mean, what is this recycling? The base metal is plastic. How do you turn that into something useful? Well, you discover a philosopher's stone that will transmute the throwaway plastic into something valuable. That's the formula. The philosopher's stone is the instrument or vehicle, the magic, that transmutes something that is basic and has no value into something valuable. So I said Buddha is an alchemist. So Buddhism is a formula, basically. Buddhism is the science of turning base metal into gold. Now we're dealing psychologically. So what is the base metal psychologically that we have a lot of and can't find any use for? We keep generating it, and we're filled up with it. What is it? Stress. Or suffering. So what is it everybody's got too much of? They can't get rid of it. Stress, suffering, dis-ease, discomfort, irritation, negativity. That's the base metal. How do we turn that into the gold of well-being, peace of mind, creativity, joy, passion? How do we change base metal into gold, you see? That's the alchemy of the Buddha. And of course, I'll go ahead, I don't want to get into it now, but I'll also say that is the alchemy of Jesus, you see. But I'm just going to stick with one thing so I won't get you all confused. So when the Buddhism starts, his whole, he taught for 45 years, and is basically, he just taught the Four Noble Truths over and over and over again in different ways. And the first noble truth says, life is suffering. Well, there you go. You want your base metal? There's plenty of it. Suffering. Where can I go that suffering is not? Where can I go that loss is not? Where can I go that death is not? Where can I go that negativity is not? But there's a story of in Buddhist lore of a woman whose baby died, and she could not accept it. She was carrying it around, and she wouldn't let it go. She couldn't stand the loss. So she went to the Buddha and said, "Would you please save the baby?" And he says, "I'll save this baby. I'll bring it back to life. But first, you have to go to a house, and if you find a house that has no death, bring back a mustard seed from that house and I'll bring your baby back to life. So the woman did that, and she could not find any house where there was not loss, where there was not suffering. So she came back and she saw, she understood, and she became a nun. You know, in other words, that was an enlightening or a shift, you see. And that's what all the teachings about Buddha is about in the stories, is that his teaching creates a shift where you suddenly transmute the suffering in your life into the gold in your life. Transmutation. And if you go to I was first acquainted with the Catholic, I'm not a Catholic, but I was first acquainted with the Catholic Mass when I studied or read Thomas Merton, who was a Catholic monk, Trappist, who really helped me understand the mystical essence of the Mass. And the Mass is alchemy. I felt that when I was mixing the martini. I have this, I didn't bring it in here, but I got this long tube which you stir the martini in, and there's a stick, and I poured 2 shots of gin in there and a quarter shot of vermouth, and I thought, wow, this is like alchemy. I'm like this is a chemist. You see, and then I stirred it up, you see. Mix it together. So I'm taking the base metal of gin and vermouth and making a martini, you see. But I felt like a chemist. And I was mixing, then I had brought it in here. Well, the Mass is that alchemy in the sense that there is a mysterious transmutation of bread and wine, which is the base metal. The wine and bread is everywhere. You got that all over the place. And you transmute that into the mystical body of Christ. And so there is that in a sense, that's the formula of alchemy. So the base metal of suffering is transmuted into the healing grace of Christ, you see. And then that particular chalice would be a metaphor for the Holy Grail. If you remember Indiana Jones in The Last Crusade, he's searching for the Holy Grail. And if you drank from the Holy Grail, you would heal. So his father got shot by the Nazis, so he had to get the Holy Grail to heal his father. And when he got the Holy Grail, and when his father drank, he was healed, you see. So this whole idea of the transmutation. So the Holy Grail was alchemy in that it was the philosopher's stone that transmutes suffering or loss into gain. You see. So there's a lot of even this right here, Kuan Yin, the Bodhisattva of compassion in China. And this right here, you can't see it, but it's in Chinese, I think, but it's the Heart Sutra. The Heart Sutra of Zen. It's chanted in all the Zen monasteries. I talk a lot about Zen, but I'm not a Zen Buddhist. You can't label me if you try. So I'm slippery. So the Heart Sutra is alchemy. This is the Heart Sutra would be a philosopher's stone that if you chant it, and by chanting it's not just I'm going to do this in order to get that. No, I mean if you really become the chant, if you in other words, there has to be a metaphorical shift in you to make the philosopher's stone work. In Buddhism, it's called wise view. If you are, let's put it this way, if you have been seeking the philosopher's stone, and you come to a place in your life where You run out of strategies. You run out of places to look. You run out of ideas. You run out of teachers. You run out of scripture. You run out of religions. You do it all. And you're exhausted. You can't find the philosopher's stone. When you go through that process, and you come to the point, the edge of the pirate's plank, you come to the point where you're into the dark night of the soul. You have no more options, no more hope. And yet you don't leave. And yet you don't abandon. So you stay in that state of hopelessness. Then the philosopher's stone will appear in your hand or in your heart. It's not a real thing. The philosopher's stone will appear in your life, and there will be a transmutation. The Virgin Mary is a metaphor for this. So we think the Virgin Mary is about a historical person. No, it's the philosopher's stone. So if your heart becomes empty, if you empty out all your beliefs, all your strategies, everything you try, all of your options, all of your skills, all of your religions, all of your knowledge, all of your scriptures, everything that you've been relying on for your self-esteem, and you throw it and you lose it all. It's all gone. It's miscarriage. The whole thing is gone. You're empty. But then you remain in that emptiness. You don't try to fill it up with alcohol or martinis or drugs. You remain in that emptiness. And then there is a divine conception, which is what the Virgin Mary, the myth of the legend of the Virgin Mary, or the story is that the Virgin had a divine conception. And the Christ was born. Well, there again you have alchemy. Emptiness creates fullness. So if you become completely empty, you will become completely full. If you become totally empty, you become totally full. Now, how is that possible? Well, if you stop to think, it's very logical. All right, well, let's look at this, see if I can explain it. So this is empty. When something becomes totally empty, all right, let's put it this way. If everything were totally green, you couldn't see green. You would have to have one dot of another color in order for you to see green. So, let me see if that's the correct thing, but totally empty means there is no emptiness. If everything were totally green, there would be no green. So if everything were totally empty, it wouldn't be empty unless you saw one little dot of full. In other words, you wouldn't see the green unless you saw one dot of another color. Then the green would snap into view, you see. But if everything was green, there's no reference to it. There's nothing to reference it to. So perception doesn't work when everything is one, because you can't see, there's nothing to compare it to. So see, our calculating mind works on calculation, comparison, and contrast. You see, I know how long this is because I compare it to something else. All right? Which is longer? Well, this is longer because I compare it to that. But if I had no reference, I would have no measurement. So if everything is empty, everything is also full. If everything were totally full, you couldn't see fullness. If everything were totally empty, you couldn't see emptiness. So emptiness is fullness. Fullness is emptiness. And this is a Zen cone. at the end of the Heart Sutra. Form is empty, is nothing but emptiness. Emptiness is nothing but form. That's the conclusion. That is the discovery of the Heart Sutra. That when you're totally empty, you're totally full. When you're totally empty, you're totally full. So the Philosopher's Stone materializes magically when you are totally empty. But it doesn't mean that you don't accept emptiness, you see. If you can't accept emptiness, that means that you have a thought of fullness. Oh, I'd rather be full. I can't accept this emptiness. I can't accept the emptiness because I have one thought of fullness. But what if you had no thought of fullness? Not a thought, you see. Then there would be nothing but emptiness. And that would be nothing but fullness. So there is the turning point, you see. From being totally empty, totally dead, to being totally alive. So this is the whole point of Jesus' teachings from my point of view. You have to die before you're born. Well, if you have to be totally dead. Now that doesn't mean physical death. It means you have to let go of everything. You have to go into psychological loss. And one by one, let go of everything you cling to. Oh, there's another rope I'm hanging on to. Let go of that. And then there's another one. I let go of that. So you keep letting go until you are clean as a bone. No fragments of flesh left. Nothing left, you see. And when you're that clean, when you're that empty, you become that full. Bam, you see. But if there's one little piece of flesh, one little thing you're hanging on to, now you're suffering in the emptiness. Oh, I don't want to be empty. I'm depressed. I'm depressed. Everything is empty. Nothing means anything anymore. Everything is empty. Oh my God. Everything is gone, you see. Woe is me. Well, you're still clinging. You're still hanging on to a thought, you see. You're still hanging on to the idea that this emptiness is no good. You see. Think about this. Think about that. Thanks for dropping in.